go ahead and quarterback this to Patty because Patty, I saw your newsletter that came out on Monday. You told us that Wednesday was a big day because Jerome Powell was speaking. You want to give us a market and economic update just from what you can from what happened today.
Well, yeah, I mean, every week there, on Mondays when I send out the newsletter, it's designed to get everyone to focus on the right sources of news that are going to impact the bond market and, as a result, interest rates. Because from my perspective, we're talking about real estate. Jerome Powell did speak today, but there are 14 instances this week where members of the Fed are going to be speaking. And Jerome didn't say anything new today. He just reiterated the fact that they are focused on bringing the target inflation rate down to 2%. There was a 90% chance that there was going to be a rate cut in March. Well, we're in April. There was no rate cut. So you have to realize that the conversations that are taking place Jerome Powell reiterated that they're looking at data in between meetings. He said this over and over and over again for over a year now. So the point that he made today was that they don't know, they can't determine whether or not this uptick in inflation or the stubborn nature of inflation at this time stagnating is temporary. They can't. You guys have to realize that if they cut interest rates too soon, inflation is going to go crazy again because people have not stopped spending money in a high interest rate environment. People have not stopped buying homes. Home prices have not stopped rising. People have not stopped buying cars. People haven't stopped buying groceries. The percentage of people that are living paycheck to paycheck are high, but the economy hasn't broken to the point where various sectors are suffering in a great way. As a matter of fact, they're growing. The economy continues to grow. And so other notes that were highlighted in the newsletter explain exactly why that is. And on Monday, interest rates jumped up significantly when the manufacturers' reports came out. It's called an ISA report. This report comes out and it's about manufacturing, right? So if you own a company and you have a good that's being manufactured and manufacturing companies are growing, that means more people are relying on them to manufacture goods, right? So that means the economy is growing at a pace that I think the data was something about since 2019, we haven't seen this much growth. And there has been consistent growth in the economy ever since interest rates were hiked. Okay, so the point of hiking an interest rate is to slow down the economy, and it's not slowing down. Nope. So therefore, the economy can sustain a higher interest rate environment, and dropping interest rates too soon would be detrimental to inflation, progress that's been made on inflation. So we're not going to see interest rates being cut until you're going to see unemployment rising and inflation headed downward quick. And there are no signs right now that support the fact that inflation is going to continue to go down, although there are signs of some weakness in the labor department. I would argue that weakness is not going to be enough to get us a rate cut.
So if we're not cutting, are we hiking or we're just staying? Like what?
There's no reason to hike. The interest rates would just remain flat where they are. So if the Federal Reserve decides to keep them where they are at the 5.25%, it's the idea that they'll be higher for longer. So that just means that that's called restrictive monetary policy, where you have a higher rate, and that means there's less money in circulation. If they opened up the floodgates and put more money into circulation, the prices of goods and services would skyrocket. If interest rates went down right now, homeowners would be suffering a great deal. Affordability is a problem because of interest rates and home prices and wage growth, not just interest rates. It's actually more likely that you're going to see a significant increase to your income before you're going to see a significant decrease to home prices.
And isn't it true, as far as homes are concerned, and I think you may have mentioned this in your commentary, if the interest rates drop, the prices of the homes are going to skyrocket. So it's a lose-lose situation. You have so many people that are waiting on the interest rates to drop before they even purchase, but that's not a good strategy necessarily.
How they're correlated is that when you have, if there was an article right now that said interest rates drop, mortgage rates drop by 0.25%, not the Fed funds rate, you're going to see 25% increase to buyers to the market.
That's crazy.
So what happens is if there's only 10 properties on the market and there's 30 people offering, there's your problem. That's what drives prices up. So there's lots of commentary on Twitter where you see listing agents talking about taking multiple offers, and these offers keep coming in higher and higher and higher. Buyers can't compete. If they're doing that in a 7% interest rate environment, what do you think is going to happen in a 6% interest rate environment? So the best time to buy a house is when you're buying within your means. If you can afford it, you've got to get out there and place those offers.
That's good.
So Patty, what does this mean, like, as far as spending? So you're saying that the rates are high, inflation is high, but people are still spending money. How would we see improvements in our economic conditions? Is it to kind of like stop spending, put more effort into saving, reducing our expenses, like holistically, economically? What does that look like?
Well, I mean, from an individual perspective, right? So if you're concerned about your job or there's massive layoffs happening at your work, then yeah, you'd be foolish to spend too much, and you'd also be foolish not to be looking at other job opportunities ahead of that, right? Getting ahead of that. From a more national perspective, what we would need to see is less growth, and I don't know what the solution to that would be. Because the government is spending money as if it's never going to go out of style. We have over $100 trillion in debt that's the interest on that is ridiculous. So from a national scale, if you have a government that is spending out of control and there's not enough money coming in to offset that, there's only a few things that can solve for that. Higher taxes, a complete global economic reset, or you have to have, some sort of massive event that really changes the way that the dollar is valued. There's just no way that they can keep spending. And the number one cause of inflation is actually government spending, according to economists that have been speaking about this, more quietly, because no one's going to have that on the headline, right? So government spending is a massive, massive problem. We have to cut that. So when you're voting, think about that. Think about the government spending is out of control. There is just absolutely no reason. And this is a direct threat to future Social Security. Let's talk about infrastructure, right? Everyone knows about this bridge that collapsed, right? I'm not saying that the bridge wouldn't have collapsed if we had more investment in infrastructure, because this boat running into it, the cargo ship running into it, was a massive, massive problem. But we're not spending money on infrastructure. We're not building schools. We're not creating education. We're not putting money into retirement. What we're doing is spending money on things that we shouldn't be spending money on. So we have to think about that.